Welcome to the cage match. Where you what?
Mike, you're not alone. I'm sure someone's going to come in that will support the Genesis with you.
That's right, because I just tweeted out to have all of my Sega fans come flood the chat. That's why.
And they can be wrong.
They can, but they won't be because they're going to choose Sega. That's all right.
This was actually inspired by an argument I was already having with one of my circle of friends. So hopefully they come in and throw their 2 cents in too.
That's all right. I came prepared tonight. Moscato.
Gonna get all liquored up and
that's right.
Fired up.
That's right. And
what's up, GMC?
You sons of bitches.
Here's another thing I like.
Oh boy. It's an poll right now.
I legit hope that we actually have
how did everybody's weekend go, by the way?
Of supporters for each console.
Busy, but good.
What's up, Dizzy?
You'll like this. You'll like this poll. You'll find it amusing.
Oh, see,
a little biased.
This is some bullshit right here.
I'm gonna report this. This
is.
I'll kill that one so I can start a better one.
This is beautiful. I see. He thinks it's funny, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's hysterical.
Oh, and somebody voted already.
I wonder who that was.
It
wasn't me, actually. I set it up and then started laughing. Oh. There we go. So we'll go ahead and put that up there. We'll let that ride. Oh,
now, I do believe that Sandwich is a Genesis guy.
He might be. I know a lot of people in chat are NES guys overall. If you were to tell them to choose a Nintendo system, it would probably be the NES.
Vote Sandwich. Vote Sandwich. I need your help, Sandwich. Vote.
So, since it is my birthday today, my wife has brought me a sad little. Oh, sad now.
Was that a bonbon?
Something. I don't know what it is. It's tiny.
Eat it.
Of course, I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna waste it. I'm gonna eat it.
Happy birthday.
Don't go Marilyn Monroe, man. That's just creepy. You're not gonna change me to your side that way.
Let's see, what will I vote for?
All right. Well,
wow. We have a Sega crowd.
Strong.
We have a Sega crowd in here, and you're all wrong.
Holding strong. Don't you listen to him. Don't you let him. Don't you let him.
You're all wrong.
Don't you let him influence you.
I'm totally going to influence you.
You vote Sega like you should.
Did you talk about me influencing people?
Yeah, but it's not my channel.
We got all sorts of people in here. We got Carla in here tonight. We got HTK.
Look at all these lovely people.
Mazen. What's up, Mazen?
We got Camaro. We got Mazen's in here. TV's Hasselhoff is in here. Sorry, I'm talking and eating at the same time. You guys should be used to that by now. Darkside is in here.
The Monday.
Please.
You guys, popcorn. Games is in here.
Dorkside, I used to like you.
Dizzy's in here.
Yeah, look at all these great people.
We got a lot of great people in here. Drip Pool's in here. We got tons and tons of
not
awesome
voting
people
for Mike to jump out of the cake wearing tassels. Why are we even voting? What's the point of democracy?
Oh, Rab's in here too. What's the point of democracy to not have Mike do that?
Well, then you all better vote Sega. or turn the camera off for a second.
We have a sad crowd. I knew it was going to be in a minority on this one.
Really?
I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised.
I'm honestly not surprised. I've known that a lot of the retro community between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis will choose Genesis for some unknown reason.
Well, maybe we can get into that tonight.
Gee, I wonder.
So, before we get too deep into anything tonight, what did you guys do this weekend? I guarantee you had a better weekend than I did.
Wow.
Mike, why don't you
go? Let's see. So Friday night was normal. Friday night services, whatnot. Saturday had my first band gig of the year.
Nice.
It was good to get back out. It's been rough with COVID. People are just starting to hire bands again, and granted, and I don't see granted. I mean, it was a VFW hall up near where I live, but I'll tell you what, man, VFWs and American Legions have probably some of the best crowds. If you're not going to do a party, if you're not going to do like a private event, they have some of the best crowds you'll ever find, especially after they start drinking. So, no, and it was a great night. And then Sunday, what did I do Sunday? I spent the Sunday cleaning the house. So, yeah, it was a good weekend.
What'd you do, Rob?
What did I do? Clean the house a little bit. So I took care of a little bit of my honeydew list. And I think I actually played Sega Genesis, in fact. So I played NES more, but I didn't play Super Nintendo at all. I did.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if I put NES on this poll, the NES would start blowing away both these consoles. With this crowd, I think that's probably where it would go.
Maybe.
We got a few diehard Genesis. Honestly, we got a couple really diehard Genesis fans that are.
Why don't you just throw a quick poll for that? I'm kind of curious.
I don't think we can do two polls at a time.
16-bit consoles
you can't do two polls at a time. Right now, if I were to enter right now, Super Nintendo would be winning by a hair's breadth. It's about 50-50 right now. And in all fairness, I owned both consoles growing up, and I recall playing my Super Nintendo more, I didn't really neglect my Genesis. I had a lot of games that I played on that as well. It just, as I kind of went through the library, I guess more recently, as I've gotten into the channel and started doing more retro games, the Genesis library I just struggled to fall in love with because of how overly difficult they decided to make most of those titles. They're way more complicated than they need to be. They're way more flaky than they need to be in a lot of ways.
What are?
Doesn't make them bad. A lot of the Genesis titles.
I think it really depends on what ones you're picking. But...
Yeah, and it was for a more adult audience.
Only if you're talking sports games. I mean, the rest of it's kind of the same. I mean, if anything, there were a lot more JRPGs and stuff like that on the Super Nintendo. So if you're into RPGs, Nintendo had Square Enix, man. There's 9 titles there alone. The Dragon Quest series,
actually,
the Fantasy series.
I will. He's right. There was the Fantasy Star series on the Genesis, and that's kind of
right.
One other series, the Shining
Sword. You're right. Shining Force, Sword of Vermilion. Might
Sword of Vermilion is kind of an action RPG. It's not like a traditional RPG. If you're going to put that one in, I'm going to throw Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past at you, and that destroys Sword of Vermilion. I'm sorry, it just does. Nobody bothers to play Sword of Vermilion now. Everybody plays Link to the Past.
That's true.
No.
And for that record, I'll throw Secret of Mana in there, which is still played more than Sword of Vermilion. And plays very much the same way. And Chrono Trigger.
Chrono
Trigger is more of a classic JRPG turn-based.
Was absolutely nothing like Link to the Past. Absolutely nothing like it.
No,
it was
but
still
you
an
move
RPG.
around and it's more action-oriented combat. You're in control.
You do a lot of talking, a lot of buying equipment, equipping. You do a lot of.
I'm aware. I played through that game as a kid.
Hasselhoff, this is what we came here for. Just let him do it.
Let
them sort it out on their own.
That's exactly what this is for. This is how we truly test our friendship.
I can show you how we fight. I win.
You. Wow.
But there's also the Shining Force series, which I don't think is a traditional. What's up, Eugene?
Hey, guys.
I don't think that Shining Force is a traditional RPG. I think it's more of a tactical RPG, right?
It is. Shining in the Darkness is more of a traditional RPG. Shining Force is a tactical RPG. And if you want to bring in tactical RPGs, I would give that to Genesis because they had like 2 or 3 on there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was only, I want to say, Romance of Three Kingdoms or something like that on the Super Nintendo, maybe Ogre Battle. So, and they weren't quite as nice as Shining Force.
Yeah, I think
Landstalker.
actually, I don't know.
Hey, Brosa, good to see you, man.
Hey, Brosa.
What's up, Rosa? Hopefully everyone is voting. As they
Don't
come in.
forget, too.
Right now, it's
Not
about 50-50. We got 22 votes. It's neck and neck right now.
That's pretty good.
Which is
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of,
it's
more
even.
what I expected it to be.
Dead even. Oh, my goodness. I'm neglecting saying hi to my family here in the chat. Lindy's here.
Yeah, I'm trying to pop people in there. Oh, yeah, you got Mario RPG in there, which is probably one of the more unique Mario games on the system, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Di's in here. What's up, man? Good to see you. Brab had both. He leans Super Nintendo, better sports games on the Genesis, more edgy teen games, but better RPGs with more exposure on the Super Nintendo, more standout platformers. Both had plenty of hits, and I agree with that assessment. And that's kind of where more my headspace went, because when it comes down to deciding between the two, I kind of looked at a few factors on it, and more than just going back, because I kind of went back and started looking at the list today to see if maybe it's just rose-colored glasses or recent incidents with the Genesis library. And it's part that, but it's also part that you had Super Metroid, you had multiple Mario games on there, you had Mario RPG, you had the Mega Man X series, which Genesis never got any of that on. They didn't even get any Mega Mans on their console outside of Wily Wars, which was never released in the States.
Yeah, we got that digital.
There we go. There we go. Now my faction's showing up. Get up here and vote. I got John. I got Daddy J, Graphic God. Here, and Lindy. Lindy said his Genesis game library was 3 times the SNES.
See, mine was leaning more towards the Super Nintendo because it had more games I wanted to play at that time. When you've got Super Metroid, which you've never played, but is an outstanding game. A Link to the Past, which was one of my favorite action RPGs at the time. Secret of Mana. The 2 Final Fantasy games that dropped on it, which they labeled Final Fantasy 2 and 3, which were actually 4 and 6, which were amazing. You had Dragon Quest, you had Gargoyle's Quest, which was actually brutally hard, but Demon's Crest, that's it. But hugely creative. And then you start to get to the ones that mix that are basically the same game, but play radically different.
Like Konami's output was different on the Sega Genesis. They arguably put more effort into the Super Nintendo games.
But even the Ghost and Goblins games were different between the two. Well, very similar.
Yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Ghouls and Ghosts were totally
supposed to be the same game, but very different.
I don't know if they're even supposed to be. I felt like Super Ghouls and Ghosts was supposed to be a unique, because it's not very similar at all.
Yeah, between the two, from what I've played, I can get a little bit further, and I don't know, I find a better groove on Super Ghouls and Ghosts than I do on Ghosts and Goblins. Oh, hi.
Well, don't forget the Ghouls and Ghosts on the Genesis.
This is take 2.
Oh!
My wife is escalating things.
Oh,
so for those of you just popping in, it is my birthday today. And I didn't take today off because I am on call this weekend, which was kind of awful. But I'm sort of celebrating my birthday because my wife, she's like, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I went, "I'll take a cupcake." And she brought me a bonbon, and I was sad. Now I have a cupcake. At the rate this is going, I have no idea how the stream is going to end, but this is going to be weird.
Happy birthday.
Oh, it's not helping your cause. Not helping your cause.
So, anyway, a reminder that Ghouls and Ghosts on the Genesis was actually published and developed by Sega.
That's what. Well, see, we talked about that last week, and I said, wasn't actually the Ghouls and Ghosts developed by Sega, not Capcom?
It was.
I thought it was Capcom.
No,
so here's. Then why did it even come out on the Super Nintendo? I'm kind of confused.
Well,
or were they developed by
last
2
time we
different
talked
companies?
about it, I said that Capcom didn't do shit for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I wish I could. Let me see if I can send this. image link.
Thanks, guys.
Because I was
Hugo's
under
in
the
the
impression
chat.
that Capcom didn't even
Zombie
develop.
agrees with me.
See if you
Super
could-
Ghost was the best game.
See if you could bring this up.
Did you put it in private?
It's in the private chat.
Okay. All right, cool. Let me pull this up real quick. Okay, so there's Ghouls and Ghosts. Let me do. Sure. Dang it. Let me move some stuff here. Screen. There we go.
Okay, so
Yeah, I thought Ghouls and Ghosts was done by Capcom, so that's definitely the
look.
Sega version.
yeah, but look underneath the Capcom 1988, reprogrammed by Sega in 1989. So Sega took Capcom's game and redeveloped it for the Genesis.
Just like Strider. I mean, this is what we were talking about. We were talking about Street Fighter last week, but
Yep. Now, let's talk about
Street Fighter.
Konami.
I didn't care for as much on the Genesis as I did the Super Nintendo. It was something about the color palette I liked better on the Super Nintendo version.
See,
And
but
the base controller layout, since I never had one of the 6-button controllers for the Genesis,
Oh, see, that
it was
6-button controller.
it was almost unplayable on
It
the
was
3-button
unplayable.
controller.
It was.
for the
But once
Genesis.
you got that 6-button controller, it blew the Super Nintendo controller away because you had all
Hey,
6
Phoenix.
buttons right where
Thanks
they
for
should have
popping
been.
in.
Hey, Phoenix. So let's talk about Konami for a second
okay.
because I'm going to push back on Konami putting more effort into the Super NES and the Genesis because I will give you. If you want to argue Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm willing to concede that maybe Turtles in Time was probably a little bit more unique than Hyperstone Heist.
I do enjoy Hyperstone Heist. It is
I
fun.
do too. No,
Me
but
too.
I like both of those games. But Contra Hardcore was a game that people didn't think could be done on the
That's
Genesis.
not Capcom.
I said Konami.
Yeah, we're talking
We're
about
talking
Okay.
Konami now.
I thought
Because
you
he
said
said-
Capcom. Okay,
I said Capcom on here. He said Konami game. He said Konami put more effort into SNES games than they did Genesis games.
Yeah.
So I brought up Turtles.
I did say that.
But Contra Hardcore has graphics in it that, by all rights, the Genesis shouldn't be able to do, but the faster processor that it had allowed it to. And Rocket Knight Adventures is probably one of their best platformers, and that was a Genesis game. They put a ton of work into Genesis games. I'm not saying they didn't with SNES. Castlevania Bloodlines.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually argue with myself because I like Bloodlines better than Super Castlevania 4.
I do too.
See,
I
see,
do
I'm
not.
gonna go with Zombie on this one. Contra Hard Corps. I'm gonna. There's a couple of games I came here ready to concede. One was Contra 3 versus Hard Corps. Hard Corps is a better game. It's just a better game. And then arguably Bloodlines, which you're talking about, versus Castlevania 4. And that has to do with them trying to do
I'm walking it back as we speak.
With them trying to do a more unique story than what they tried to do with Castlevania 4, which was kind of a reimagining of Castlevania 1. And I love Castlevania 4. That's a fun game.
So
But-
I'm gonna run down a couple other Konami games that were really good. Sunset Riders, which was an
Sunset
excellent.
Riders was also on the Super Nintendo.
It was, but it was an excellent port on the Genesis.
Which one was better?
It's a good question.
Okay.
They
I
might have been.
I don't think I've played both versions, so I
Yeah,
couldn't really speak to that one. I just know it was also on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I could put that as a wash. But what they did do was a much better version of Double Dribble on the Genesis. Now, I don't think Double Dribble came out for the SNES, but it did come out. I mean, Double Dribble was out on the NES.
If you were a fan of sports titles, the Genesis was definitely more your bag because the Genesis really focused on bringing that to the market. That's one of the things it did, which was hugely to popularize sports games, right? That's not to say they weren't out and around before. You had like Tecmo Bowl and stuff like that before. But there was a big, big push on those for the Genesis. I was never a sports game fan, and there was so much of that crap on the shelf. It made it very hard for me to find the games I wanted on the Genesis next to the 80 gazillion fucking football games that were on there that I cared nothing about.
And hockey games.
And hockey, and basketball, and soccer, and
Pat Riley basketball, and they had the best boxing games too. They had Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield had 2 excellent boxing games.
See, I for my sports game, as much as I got into sports games, which is almost not at all, I would have taken Super Punch-Out versus any boxing game you gave me on the Genesis. I would happily play Super Punch-Out versus any of those, any day of the week. But that wasn't really boxing as boxing. It was sort of an action puzzle game.
right. It was like Tomb Raider. Left, up. It was a Konami code. Left, right, up, down, B, A, start.
See, Gunstar Heroes, I can't go with you on Gunstar Heroes on this comment.
Oh, my God.
Thunder Force, I never got into Thunder Force. Streets of Rage, I like that series. That's good. Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 2 are amazing. I love those games. So, Sonic 2 was vastly improved over Sonic 1, even though I love both of them.
Yeah. That 2-player mode in Sonic 2 was amazing.
But this is not enough to make me skip the colossal truckload of stuff that was on the SNES that I played as a kid.
he's already pulling up games that defined like my life. Streets of Rage and Streets of Rage 2. And here's the thing, if we're talking about, there were no games on the Super Nintendo like Streets of Rage. There was Final Fight, but Final Fight was gimped by only having 2 guys and 1 player. It took the Sega CD to come out with the definitive version of Final Fight. But there were no games really like Streets of Rage, and then Streets of Rage 2, which just was arguably one of the best beat 'em ups of its era.
I would say Turtles in Time is right in there with that.
But that's just
Turtles in Time.
I don't really like
beat 'em up. It's like a pinnacle of beat 'em up.
But Streets of Rage 2 was a wholly different kind of. I mean, not even just from. I would argue, John, that I've beaten several incredibly hard Genesis games that even you haven't beaten yet.
Did you use the save state stick?
No.
Oh, we're shooting fire here.
So I'm going to defend myself on this one because I played a lot of really hard SNES games lately and a lot of really hard Genesis games lately.
Yeah.
And between the two, the balance between the two, I found the Super Nintendo ones were a bit more balanced and a little bit less unfair than the Genesis ones, particularly when it comes to crap like Earthworm Jim. But that game I don't like on either platform.
Yeah, so,
I just think it's bad.
Also, Alpha Nerd has a big old long list of Genesis games. I would add
Alien Soldier. I've not played through. That one looks fun. Thunder Force series, I never got into. Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. I love those. Sonic 1 and 2 I played. 3 I haven't played. And Knuckles. Bloodlines, Hardcorps. Golden Axe. I love Golden Axe, but it's really limited. The more I've gone back and played that game drives me crazy because of how limited it is compared to other ones of its own era. Like if you try to compare it next to like Streets of Rage or even Final Fight, it feels really limited. TMNT, Sunset Riders, TMNT, you've got an equivalent game I feel like on Super Nintendo.
I will give you TMNT.
I would almost call that one even.
I would give you Turtles.
Sunset Riders was on both platforms.
Yeah, I'd give you a wash on that one too.
Dick Tracy, I haven't played that one.
Gunstar, vaguely remember Dick Tracy. Gunstar Heroes was like one of the top 10 Genesis games of all.
Gunstar Heroes, something about that art style throws me off. The gameplay's fine. Outrun, I could care less about Outrun. Like I'm not big on racing games. I didn't like Road Rash either. I'm not big on those, so I'm not the person to go to for those. Rocket Knight is a lot of fun. Tiny Toons I haven't played yet. I'm only got interested in that one recently because of you, Alpha. Strider
was amazing.
Is amazing, but it's also a cheap piece of shit. And I say that having played both the arcade, the Genesis version, and multiple other versions of that game, and it's all the same damn game retranslated over and over and over again. outside of like the NES version and the Strider 2 they did on the PlayStation. It's basically the same freaking game.
Quackshot's
amazing.
Yeah,
Quackshot is amazing.
Quackshot's amazing. I would also put in there, because you have to remember some other games that
Blast processing was bullshit. I can pull up multiple articles on how much bullshit blast processing is. Come at me, John. I'm fueled on sugar and diabetes. Bring it, son.
John is taking the piss tonight. And I'm here for it. You got to remember, too, that Sega had a lot...
Darkside's coming in with the heat. Wow, even I wouldn't say they're garbage.
Beast was garbage?
Wow.
Wow. You're drunk.
It's charming garbage, but both those games are very... I would not put those games forward as my console's best game.
So hold on a second, because Altered Beast is the reason I was not a Nintendo fanboy. Because my wife has escalated yet again.
Oh, good grief! I'm not cutting a piece of this. I don't have what? I can't even finish my cupcake.
I have gained 5 pounds just watching you.
I don't know what to do with this right now. I'm still eating the cupcake because I'm trying to have a conversation.
So I wanted a Nintendo Entertainment System very badly, and my father, who worked at a toy store, brought home a Genesis, and I was pissed. I was angry. I wanted a NES. That's what I wanted. And how could you bring me this thing? I've never heard of a Genesis. What is this garbage? I didn't say that to my father, but I'm thinking, what is this that he did to me? I was not happy.
See, I actually enjoy Altered Beast.
I like Altered Beast.
Golden Axe 1 and 2 are really good. They're nothing compared to Revenge of Death Adder, which never made it to a console.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're all garbage when you compare them to the extent of Revenge of Death Adder.
When I turned on Altered Beast and I heard Zeus say, "Rise from your grave," and I saw this.
He did not say that clearly, by the way.
I know he didn't, but
that sounds more like it.
Listen, I was in my teens, and the guy was like this big, and Mario's only this big, and this guy is this big, and he's punching and kicking. I was like, wow. And that was when I turned into a Sega fanboy that day.
Okay, guys, hold on. Let me go into the chat here. Calm down, guys. We're just screwing around and having some fun here.
We're having fun.
I'm giving Mike a whole load of crap, and some of you guys in chat. This is all meant in good fun. I had played and enjoyed both consoles as a kid. I still, to an extent, enjoy them. Though as I've gotten older, I've leaned more towards the SNES library.
Come on, you guys.
Based off my experience of what I played.
You guys knew we love to argue about games. So you knew this
is like the ultimate video game argument. Now, just to give it like a little background, I had a Sega Genesis when I did not have a Super Nintendo. I never had a Super Nintendo until now as an adult. However, the entire time during my career with the Sega Genesis, all I was really thinking about was the games that I was not going to get because it only came on the Super Nintendo. So I missed the Mega Man X series was a huge loss for me. I was very salty about that. Batman Returns. These are the games I was looking at, just completely envious of these games.
Genesis Batman.
So I was never able to like fully even really appreciate the Sega Genesis. And then I also, because I never had the Super Nintendo, I did not develop the affection for the Super Nintendo either. So I think most Super Nintendo games are overrated.
I will give you that in a few of them. I definitely think Contra 3 is overrated for what it is.
It is overrated.
It's a fun game, but having played through the original Contra,
Super Metroid,
it loses overrated. A lot of it. Super Metroid, I will fight you to the death on that one. That one's amazing. That one took the entire Metroid franchise, cranked it up to 15.
I looked for you in the chat, Mazem, before I said it, but yeah.
Just remember, chat, I'm drinking Moscato tonight. All is good.
Oh, God, you're drinking Moscato?
All is good.
That proves you have no taste. Oh.
You know what? You just keep eating your.
Oh, I'm sorry, Moscato. I thought you said Muscal, and I'm like, oh god,
No.
you're drinking Muscal.
No,
That's like a crappy version of
Moscato.
tequila, which is already not my favorite.
No, California Moscato.
I do like Moscato. I'll go with that
nice
one.
Sweet, it's a nice sweet wine. I'm gearing up for Passover.
We're not doing TurboGrafx.
Yeah, we're not going there
man.
tonight.
That's
we're not
right.
going there because there was a lot of consoles in this era.
No, yeah, right.
They're huge, and we can't argue all of these on the show. I have to sleep at some point.
Although thinking about this, we should do a 16-bit showdown with Chuck one night, because I know he can bring the TurboGrafx heat. So here we go, brother Noof.
You hurt me, man. You hurt me,
brother Noof. He said Sega. Here we go. Genesis is pulling ahead. But Genesis is pulling ahead.
See, Zombie. Wait a minute. Super Metroid is not overrated.
So
Super Metroid
there
is
are just
the
some
reason
Super
you guys
Nintendo games that just have like
games.
this lasting reputation of being the greatest games of all time, and they're not. These aren't the greatest games of all time. They're great games, sure. The Zelda series did not peak with Link to the Past. The Metroid series did not peak with Super Metroid. I get a little annoyed at the unbridled fanboyism about the Super Nintendo. As much as I love, I also kind of do my own fanboyism about some of those games. But
see, I'm only comparing Super Castlevania 4 next to Bloodlines, and Bloodlines was kind of not real well known. It's a Castlevania game by a lot of people who didn't just own Genesis, right? Because most of the Castlevania games, at least at that era, up till that point, had been on Nintendo consoles. So nobody was looking for one to hit on the Genesis. And when that one hit, nobody really caught on to it for a while. And then now that I've played more of them, I think graphically, Castlevania 4 looks better. However, Bloodlines is more unique.
Bloodlines is a more traditional Castlevania game. I like Super Castlevania just fine. It's given the whole series now, looking back on it in retrospect, Super Castlevania is more of an odd duck than Bloodlines.
It is.
I have heard.
I think it's a really cool stage, and I like what they did with the Mode 7 on that. I thought it was really neat the way they made some of the rooms and stuff spin, but realistically, I would like to see a continuation of the story rather than a revisit back to Simon, who wasn't, well, from what I had played, it made total sense to me as a kid, because I played Castlevania 1 and 2, and I never played 3. So I never knew anyone other than Simon. So when I had Simon again, it just made total sense. But the storyline had changed a lot since then.
See, people had always told me that they felt Bloodlines was the odd man out of those games because it had two different characters from the main line, and one of them used the staff. Mm-hmm. So it was like, this is a lot of people actually. I used to argue with people because they would say, well, this is not Castlevania. This is a Castlevania spinoff. And I'm like, no, it has the Castlevania Bloodlines, means it's not Simon, and it's not.
I think I understand why that, because all the others, for the most part, with the exception of 3, it had Simon.
Right.
And so he's seen as the lead character, not like it's a generational thing. And even on 3, that was like Simon's predecessor in that one. Actually, a couple generations before him, I think.
Right.
But it's in that same bloodline, whereas these two characters, one of them's not even from his bloodline at all. Right.
Right. And that was part of the issue. I liked it. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the effects in Bloodlines, and I think this is where a lot of people, kind of don't get how. I'm not you, Rob, but how some people don't get how when you could get into the coding of the Genesis, you could do some shit that the Super NES had to do on a chip. And some of the things that Bloodlines did with some of its rotation stages and stuff were really impressive how they were doing it.
Yeah, that game was kind of like as much as a video game as it was also an advertisement for everything that the Super Nintendo could do. It's like you wanted Konami to develop a launch title for you because it kind of feels like they would just show off all the cool little dazzle tricks that the system could do. Like they really leaned into that Mode 7 stuff.
And they did that with a lot of the early games too. Contra 3 used it really heavily, and I think it was earlier in the lifespan
to
too.
A detriment for sure.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Having gone back and played it, I don't disagree with that. Those overhead stages weren't nearly as fun as like some of the more first-person stages or isometric stages on the NES versions.
Yeah. So some of the other games that did some of those crazy effects besides just the newer games, and you guys. I mean, we saw Quackshot. People also forget that the Genesis was home to a lot of Disney games.
Castle Evolution is one of my all-time favorite Genesis games.
That is.
Those are the ones that I'm the most impressed with, having gone back, because when I was of the age of playing those, I wasn't into Disney stuff at the time, right? So the Disney games just didn't appeal to me. Those were to me for like a younger audience than what I was looking for when I was looking for things on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis at the time. And it's to my own detriment because some of those are just freaking hard as nails. For one, two, there's some of the best design games on the console, quite frankly, which is weird that Disney was just like killing it.
That tower,
and they had a few of them like Mickey Mouse's Magical.
So there was like Castle of Illusion
or something
World
like that,
of Illusion,
which was amazing on Super Nintendo.
Yep. There was Castle of Illusion, World of Illusion.
We were just talking about that game, Nick. It was Magical Quest, starring Mickey Mouse, and then that was only on the Super Nintendo. But then the sequel, The Great Circus Mystery, was on both consoles.
And don't forget that the Genesis also had Guansu, what's up, brother? Also had the definitive version of Aladdin. The Genesis
I'm actually
Aladdin
not touched Little Mermaid yet. You guys keep talking about that in Barbie.
I mean, even
Castle of Illusion looks brilliant. I agree with that. I haven't gotten to that one yet.
That tower scene where the tower is rotating and you're having to climb it, that was stuff of legend.
Now, I do think that Aladdin on the Genesis is also enormously overrated. I can't stand that game, to be honest.
Really?
I think it's worse than Earthworm Jim.
I love that game.
I know a lot of people do.
Love that game.
That's probably going to come up. Alpha Nerd right now, but just coming all over himself, talking about the Animaniacs. Or Aladdin, sorry.
Yeah, Animaniacs on Sega was good too.
I didn't mean to say Animaniacs, but...
No, I know you didn't. But see, you and I also disagreed on Tasmania. Which was,
I didn't like Tasmania. That's correct.
I know you didn't, and I did. And for a game that was first
I'm gonna have
generation,
to do something. I literally do not approve of this.
Oh my god!
Wow!
My wife is just showing off. Now. I'm terrified.
Holy crap!
That my desk is going to be set on fire.
You realize that she has to get to the number of candles, and
half my stuff is going to get broken because I don't have enough room for her to maneuver around it.
She is forklifting in a cake for you.
I feel like it's Earthworm Jim is abysmal and a terrible game on any platform. That game is ass, and I say that having gotten to the second to last stage of that game, which is 7-1. I hate that game. I hate it. And that's on the Genesis version, so I went through intestinal distress and all that crap.
I'm not the biggest Earthworm Jim 1 fan. Earthworm Jim 2 is a whole separate thing.
Yeah, I would say that Earthworm Jim 2 is definitely the better game. I actually beat that one.
No, but
which multi-platform games are we talking about here? Are we talking about Genesis games here, John, or are we talking about like? Because like if you're talking like Ghosts and Goblins and or Ghouls and Ghosts and Super Ghouls and Ghosts, I'm going to go with Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Like Hard Corpse, I'll give you that one, but like which ones are you talking about? I don't think I've ever seen you beat Earthworm Jim, so bring it. Because I've made it to stage 7-1, busting my head against that one repeatedly for weeks. That game fucking sucks. Those stages are unfun, brutal, and unfair.
So
that entire game is an unpleasant experience made by somebody who hates gamers. You gave me an escort quest as an entire stage. Fuck you, Shiny.
So in other news, I brought this up because I know we don't like, I know you guys don't like Tasmania, but the reason I bring Tasmania
Don't like that
up
one either.
is because even as a, I don't think it was a launch title, but was shortly thereafter, it still looked
Street
like a
Fighter
cartoon.
was not better on the Genesis. I played it. It was not. It was not. It was more than the gameplay. The graphics, the sound. I don't agree with it.
No, Tasmania looks good. I like the way it looks. I think
I
it's
liked
kind of
The Mortal Kombat
thing.
1 did, and the second one did, and the second one ran and looked better on the Super Nintendo. I liked the color palette on 1 on the Super Nintendo better. And even though the Genesis one had blood, I didn't care. I enjoyed it better on the Super Nintendo.
In Gem, that's the main reason why I would be giving the Super Nintendo the edge.
I've not played Wily Wars. That is a compilation, I think, of a lot of the NES ones, if I recall. It didn't have any of the X series. It was mostly like the classic Mega Man series. Rob, you would know that one better than I do. What was on that? I can't recall.
It was basically the Mario All-Stars for Mega Man. So it was the 16-bit remakes of the first 3 Mega Man games. And then there was also like a 4th extra like Wily Castle where you can choose weapons from any of the 3 games. It was nice. It wasn't as good as the NES games. However, I would have loved to have had it because that was Mega Man was the main thing I was missing on the Genesis. It's
I think the main you can get it via emulator now. Because I've got it. I've got it on my Genesis emulator, I think.
Hang on.
I never heavily got into Kid Chameleon, man.
Kid Chameleon was a good game.
Struggled to enjoy that, to get into that game. Now, I'll totally go with you on Rocket Knight. I really enjoy Rocket Knight. That game's hard as nails, too. But I like Rocket Knight.
Yeah, if people didn't know that, I could probably fool them into thinking that actually did come out on Genesis because I got a really good repro that plays great. And also, it did come out on the Genesis Mini. So it is definitely playable these days. Just it's a shame it didn't come out when it actually would have mattered. Yeah. And the Super Star Wars, that was another game that I was like, oh, I so badly wanted to play that game.
Every time I see those, I kind of look at those and I kind of cringe a little bit. Those things,
yeah.
Really, Superstar?
They had great soundtracks.
Fantastic.
They had great soundtracks, and the Mode 7 on the land speeder stages were really good. But the game, the platforming levels in the game were really what the hell.
I love how John's trying to call me bad at games constantly.
Have
you looked at my channel in the last year, my man?
Pictures.
He is trying to get a rise out of you.
He has not looked at my channel in like the last year. I guarantee it. Because if he did, he wouldn't be talking shit right now. The only thing you got going for you is Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, and that's just because I'm too lazy to put the fucking time for that inane amount of difficulty that they put into those games. And I don't find them fun. I tried Demon Souls, and I don't like it, and it's soured me on the entire company.
So now that I've had a little Moscato, I'm going to give the Super Nintendo a little bit of love.
All right.
It's because I don't use save states every 2 seconds. You want to go again, John? I get save state
Mike,
after every jump and finish it in 60 minutes.
Racing games. So I will give you that some of the when I did get into going back and playing the Super Nintendo, I have to give props to some games like F-Zero. Because that was most excellent. And it took Sega doing the Sega CD to do that. There were some racing games and things that did scaling were not the best on the Genesis. So Outrun 2042, Mario, not Mario Andretti Racing, but whatever, Super Monaco GP. Yeah, those weren't as good because the Super Nintendo did have the edge when it came to racing games. So I'm gonna give it that.
See, never really being like a racing game fan now. F-Zero, I've played that now and coming back to it, having not played it as a kid. I didn't really find that one all that. It was a little kind of hard to control, but then everything with the D-pad
is overrated.
It's kind of hard to control. I would say it's a little overrated personally.
I think it might be a little overrated. I think I might agree with you.
Wow. I think it's perfectly rated. I thought it was an excellent game.
See, even Mario Kart, I don't feel like a lot of racers came into their own
Mario Kart so much
until you started. See, I preferred the 64 version, but that's because you had the analog stick. And the analog stick was kind of a big game changer for those kinds of games because you had more finite control, right? And I think that was the big kicker for me because when I tried, having played most of these racers with an analog stick before I played them with the D-pad, it's very hard to play them with a D-pad. And I think that's because of where I jumped in on those franchises. Does that make sense? Not to say that the game itself was bad, just where I jumped into it, I find the control a little lacking based off what I've played now. Whereas other games I can just go back and play and it's no problem, right?
Jim, don't worry, we covered the RPG games. That was like the first genre that I asked
about. Jackass! If you were here, I would throw a cake at you. Give your kiddo another hug for me, by the way. It's her birthday, too.
What? Did I miss?
John has a kid who has the same birthday as I do.
Oh, which one?
It's his youngest.
Oh.
I'm gonna do names.
No,
he's youngest.
Right. Okay,
youngest
so
shares my birthday.
Happy birthday! I didn't know that. I did not know that. Wait, who did say RPG?
See, Noof, I actually,
it was Jim.
And I agree with you on this, Noof. But I freaking love the Super Scope. I had so much fun with the Super Scope. And it was a totally useless peripheral, but the one game I had with it was a lot of fun. I can't even remember the name of the game.
Was it Yoshi? Or was it? No, actually, was it?
See, I like
this game, Nick.
I think so. I think that didn't that come with it?
Where you were fighting the robots?
I think so. I think that's the one that came with the scope, right?
I thought Yoshi Safari came with the scope.
I don't remember having a Yoshi Safari game with the scope. I think Hasselhoff was heading off to bed. Heading off to bed, man. Have a good night. Thanks for popping in, man.
However, and I don't remember. I think
hi, Sci-Fi Nation. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Well, a Genesis CD that plugged into the Sega Master System. What is she bringing you now?
I don't know. What? I don't know, but she's taking something away. So that means something else is probably incoming, and I'm quite terrified. I'm quite terrified.
The Menacer.
Yeah, the Menacer. I didn't even know Sega had that thing.
Oh,
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Came with Toe Jam and Earl's Tomatoes. That thing had a 6-game cartridge with it. No, the Menace. So hold on. Because the Menacer worked with Lethal Enforcers, which was amazing on the Genesis.
Lethal Enforcers, I think I only remember playing the arcade version of it. I don't think I ever played like a console.
I actually had the Sega CD version of Lethal Enforcers. I might actually still have it.
Alpha, thanks for coming in and hanging out, man.
Alpha.
I don't mean to harsh on the Genesis. I played the hell out of that console as a kid, and I still play it.
We're
but
here.
The games I'm playing on it now.
We're here because I'm the Genesis guy. I'm the Genesis guy, and if Nick doesn't try to slap me around sometime during the week, he gets cranky. So I'm here to take it. I'm here to take the arrows in the knee from a Genesis. Good Lord.
We have slightly escalated.
Wow.
I'm going to move this over here.
Lightly? I have not seen, hold on, because I have not seen you eat a single piece of that last
I just finished the cupcake. I'm trying not to immediately get diabetes.
Cupcake. Oh, you fail.
Yeah, I do fail at cake. There's a lot of cake. Oh my god.
There's a lot of cake.
My mouse is going to be sticky because there's so much cake.
No. I enjoyed the Menacer. The Menacer had some neat that Toe Jam and Earl Tomatoes game. I played the shit out of that. But it worked for some it worked for some neat games.
I'll be honest, Jim. I don't know. They haven't finished coming in, I suspect. So I don't know. I think I asked for a cupcake. A cupcake. Not even a big cupcake, just a cupcake. And this is where things have gone. No, I'm not. I'm in the States. I'm in the United States. I'm not in Canada.
All right, so let's see. So I might have to reconsider.
I didn't get into wrestling games. I always struggled with wrestling games. And I still to this day kind of struggle with wrestling games because there was no life bar. There was just some sort of stamina. And it always felt like every time I beat on somebody until the point you could pin them, the computer would never let me pin them. And then it took them like one knockdown and I'd get pinned. I could never figure out how to play wrestling games. So I just tapped out of those early on and never looked back. I still to this day don't play them. Even on the N64, which was pretty much considered like their heyday, I didn't play them.
Paradox error. Maybe you found why he's getting so many cakes. She's dividing all the appropriate number of
That's what I said.
Across like 10 cakes.
That's what I said.
If that's the case, we're gonna be getting cakes here for a long time. What they did well was outstanding. Way more good than usually when you compare version to version. I see.
I would say that's debatable.
I would heavily debate that based off my experience of what was on both consoles. Now there were series I loved on both. I loved Golden Axe. I loved Phantasy Star. I thought Phantasy Star was a brilliant series all the way through 3. I never got to play 4. Still need to play 4. But when you were looking at the number of some of the games and some of the titles that hit, they were only on Nintendo. Nintendo was truly dominating that generation as far as massive exclusives from big developers. Where Genesis was doing interesting things was by giving things a shot.
So wait a minute though. Other than
people weren't bringing, they wouldn't either. Nintendo either wouldn't bring out or wanted too much crap. They were too tight on what they wanted to be able to bring it out, and it brought a lot of cool, unique titles. And I'll throw one out there that was a really early one that was really cool on the Genesis, and that's Revenge of Shinobi. As much as I hate the last boss in that game, a lot of the stuff they did with that game, the mute palette aside, which is a little for me, so is kind of amazing with all the parallax scrolling and all the crazy stuff that they could do with that. And the detail and the graphical detail in it is phenomenal.
Absolutely. But other than Final Fantasy,
it's not debatable for you, but you like Tasmania.
Yeah,
so
that's because Alpha Nerd and I are brothers.
It's questionable in parts.
No.
Alpha,
don't you dare let him talk you out of Tasmania. You
that game doesn't even look fun. It doesn't even look fun,
and yet it is.
I look at this. I look at this, and this does not even look fun or interesting.
It is absolutely fun. It is.
That does not look good. Fun. This looks like crap by anything on the Genesis, in my opinion. I've seen the Genesis
I don't think it looks like crap.
Much better.
It plays like crap, and it sounds like crap. But I think it looks fine. So I'm mostly on your side, Nick. Come on.
All right. So what you said.
I haven't gotten to Shinobi 3 because after Revenge of Shinobi, I needed a really, really long break from Shinobi. That last boss alone, I could basically I could walk through the rest of that game with the exception of like stage 5's jumps, which had one jump in particular that was insanely brutal. That was kind of a crapshoot if I timed it right, with almost no problem. But that last boss in stage 8 and just getting to him was a hellish nightmare that did not need to exist in that game. It was perfectly balanced until then. And that guy's crap. That guy is garbage. The setup for that fight is kind of garbage.
I am still. So you made a comment, and I want you to start expanding on this comment. So, other than Final Fantasy, what other big exclusives from big publishers that didn't work on the Genesis?
Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3.
Okay, I said besides. Hold on. I said besides Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy is, of course.
So you mean other than Square Enix is what you mean?
So you mean eliminate Square Enix?
Because that might be the only one.
Because that eliminates Chrono Trigger, which is your death kill right there.
But then also Capcom had a much better support for the Super Nintendo. They have only barely even token efforts for the Genesis. They had one. Didn't they actually have like one real game that they developed, and that was Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition? Because they didn't develop, they didn't program Strider or Ghouls and Ghosts by
Forgotten Worlds, Mercs, Saturday Night Slam Masters.
That's what I'm saying, right?
But so I'm looking up Capcom on the Super Nintendo right now. You got Goof Troop.
I mean, you had 4 Mega Man games. Five Mega Man
Mystery
games.
starring Mickey Mouse. Final Fight 1 through 3. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, that's kind of sketchy. The X-Men games on the Super Nintendo were not good. I will give the Genesis that. As much as those games are kind of brutal and arguably unfair, the X-Men games were significantly better on the Genesis than they were on the Super Nintendo. The NES and Super Nintendo did not have good X-Men games. They never did.
Right.
Like they were all kind of bad. Breath of Fire and Breath of Fire 2, which I had completely forgotten about.
Goof Troop has a following now. What's up, Freak of 4?
What's up, Freak?
What's going on?
And the Super Nintendo had like 3, 4, probably just 3. Super Nintendo.
The Alpha series, which I don't remember ever hitting the Genesis, Street Fighter Alpha. Because there were multiple Street Fighter Alpha games on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Super Street Fighter 2 hit the Genesis.
Yeah, but you didn't have any of the Alpha series. I don't think the new Challengers hit on the Genesis, I don't think.
That was Super Street Fighter 2. It was on Genesis.
Super Street Fighter, yeah, okay.
That's the new Challengers.
Yeah, because there was like 4 or 5 revisions of Street Fighter 3 that were out. There was like Turbo Edition, Hyper Fighting Edition, and
there's all kinds of
new Challengers. It was like bonkers.
Yeah, there was way too many.
All the Mega Man X games.
Are you sure Street Fighter Alpha came out?
I don't think Alpha hit on the Genesis. I don't remember seeing it. I could be wrong.
Well, you know why? Because it hit the Saturn.
What's up, Heavyweights? What's up, Panda?
Actually,
what's up, Heavyweights? Hey, Panda.
So what's up, Heavyweights?
Mega!
I'm trying to. Hey, what's up, Omega Ace? What's up, brother?
There's tons of people as we're in this discussion. If I don't say hi to you, I apologize, guys. I'm trying to keep up with the discussion here, and trying to keep up.
As usual,
Alpha was on Saturn, and honestly, that would probably be the superior version just because of the sound and everything like that. But the load times would probably suck because it's early CD days. Every early CD console suffers from shit load.
Yes, but they had the 4 meg cart, which did some offsetting of that.
Okay.
So, but. It's not that it's an unfair comparison because the Saturn is the 32-bit system. So I'm not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like me bringing the N64 in because it's in that same generation.
Yeah,
same 10-year gap. I'm trying to not bring that into this.
No.
If we went to like 32X and Sega CD, I would have to start bringing in stuff like the Nintendo 64 because the Super Nintendo ran with just that all the way up until the N64 and still outsold that and all its peripherals and every game attached to it. It wasn't until the Saturn that they had like another competition on there. Saturn could have been a heavy contender, except for the fact that it shot itself in the foot in every conceivable possible way.
Now, Heavyweights
its own worst enemy.
Guy, right? These guys are talking. Don't mind them. So Heavyweights and I were briefly talking about this before I jumped on because I was hanging out in his stream earlier. I think he's the Genesis guy too.
Yeah. So
and we got a lot of TurboGrafx people in here, and if we do another TurboGrafx discussion, I want Chuck on here, flat out. Like Chuck needs to be here for that.
Yeah,
one.
because
And possibly Cy if Cy will show up because they're both big TurboGrafx guys.
Yeah, I would actually not for any. I mean, I would be very quiet that episode because I don't know much about the TurboGrafx.
I didn't start getting into the TurboGrafx until emulation way later. I didn't pick it up because its exposure in the States was poor. Its marketing in the States was poor. And a lot of its stuff got shut down early by both Nintendo and Sega. So it didn't have a great showing in the States. Now, if you look at the PC Engine library versus both libraries combined, both Genesis and Super Nintendo, they have way more games. It was like 600 plus games, 620 or something stupid like that for the PC Engine. And only like, I want to say less than 150 for the TurboGrafx 16.
Rab, Populous, I believe, was also on. I'm not. You're bringing up great examples, but I think Populous is on the Genesis also. I think I used to have it.
Yes, Populous is on the Genesis.
ActRaiser, and
that might be the only.
Rab brings up Harvest Moon, which is still huge to this day.
ActRaiser. Good question.
Wasn't there like some Civilization game also in that generation?
Yes,
I want to say so, but I can't remember which console if it was both. And apparently it was time for more cake because cake disappeared.
Oh boy,
I'm truly terrified now.
The rest of your candles are coming. This could be the big one.
Yes. I would end it now.
But I voted for the Genesis on the
for like an hour.
I mean,
I'm half tempted to end it.
50 votes. Wow.
We've gotten almost 50 votes, and there's 49 votes.
Yeah.
We don't have that many people in chat right now.
I think some people are bringing some alt accounts in. I just, just saying.
I've just been in the stream. I've not been coming in with accounts. Matter of fact, I haven't even voted on this myself.
So,
the troll will come in with some of his alt accounts, I'm sure.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, as long as he votes for the Genesis, he can stay.
The Dreamcast is an amazing console. I do love me some Dreamcast.
Yeah. Oh, Dreamcast.
The main
console
sister
Carla
I didn't
right
have
there.
by Sega. Well, there's two if you count the 32X, because I didn't have the 32X because that attachment didn't look good.
Carla, your koala looks more like a little piggy right there. It's got little piggy ears.
It's cute though.
It's so cute, but it looks like a little piggy.
Thank you, freak. And I didn't have the Saturn because I was waiting on. At that time, I didn't have a whole lot of money, and I was having to buy my own consoles. Right, my parents weren't buying consoles anymore, which is fine. So I had to save up, and I kept waiting for Nintendo's next console because I was a huge Nintendo fan at the time. Still am to an extent. So I didn't invest in the Saturn, and that was in part one because it was super expensive. 2, it was hard to find, and 3, it was really hard to find games for. And if I was going to choose one out of those two, I probably would have gone PlayStation then, but I really wanted to see the Nintendo 64. So that's where I saved my money for. So that Saturn was the one that I skipped. And I came back with the Dreamcast. Besides, by the time the Saturn came out, they had the Genesis, the 8-bit converter, which all the games disappeared for in my area the moment I bought it. So that was $100 wasted. The Sega CD, which... while it had a lot of good games, had lackluster support for what it was overall. And then the 32X, which looked like garbage from the get-go, and I found out later why. So they had so many attachments and so much crap piled on this one system that they weren't supporting really well, that I was burned on Sega at the time and just shying away from them as a whole.
All right, so...
what's up, Taters?
I'm gonna walk back something I walked back earlier. I earlier said that Konami didn't really show up. Obviously Konami did show up for the Sega Genesis, but I think Capcom and Konami put a lot more focus on the Super Nintendo because there's a lot of games I didn't even think about that Capcom and Konami did for this Genesis, but that list could be easily doubled, I would say, on the Super Nintendo. And part of that is just because they were just bought out by Nintendo and discouraged from developing for the competitor, which was
A lot of that was just straight up on Nintendo. I'm not going to say Nintendo was a good guy during this era.
No,
they were awful. They were awful.
They were not good.
They were not good. And there was a reason, very good reason, that once they started making slip ups with the N64, people were quick to jump ship.
People
were more
Square
than
Enix
eager to
and
leave.
Sony and Capcom.
That's still my
on
favorite.
them in a
Still my
heartbeat.
favorite Nintendo system.
Oh, the N64 is a great system, but it's where they started making missteps and they could not keep people locked in anymore.
Yeah. Well, they certainly recaptured their audience with the Wii, and now with the Switch. So I mean,
to an extent, they still have not gotten third-party support like they had in the NES and Super Nintendo days.
But see,
they won't get it again. They can't do it.
And here's where I give Nintendo such props. They don't have to, because Nintendo's internal library, their internal IPs are so strong that
that's what Jim was saying earlier too. That it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
what Genesis had, the power of those first-party IPs were. I'm all choked up thinking about it. Mario, even today.
Yeah, but Sonic. I think Sonic has come. Sonic will never be more popular than Mario, but I think Sonic has become as popular as Mario.
What's crazy about Sonic, and I have 3 kids now. I have 16, 17, and an 8-year-old. My kids have never not known who Sonic was. And I don't know if they've ever even played a Sonic game, but all 3 of them love Sonic. We were all super excited as a family about the Sonic movie. And I don't really know where they got this, because I did not instill that on them. Kids just instinctively love Sonic the Hedgehog for some reason. So it's
a cute
it's
character.
Amazing to me how relevant Sonic has stayed.
So here's the thing. The reason Sonic is like that, because Sonic was designed specifically to target against Mario. So they went through, and whereas Mario kind of happened organically as the games kind of developed and Miyamoto went through with it, Sonic was designed to appeal to the masses from the get-go. They literally went around asking people, talking to people, but the problem is Sonic is its own worst enemy. Like, there has been more bad Sonic games than there have been good Sonic games at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I think people are revisiting some of those, though.
I'm not talking about the Genesis ones. I'm talking about once you start getting past like Adventure.
What like Sonic 2004, is that what it was?
That game was not
Sonic 2006, Sonic Unleashed.
So Sonic Unleashed,
Sonic Blast. There's
a
ton of those that are kind of like sketchy, dude.
All right, so Sonic 3D Blast, I'll argue with you, because I think people didn't like about Sonic 3D Blast. I
don't know what to do with this one.
Oh,
how am I gonna
blow out the candle?
Oh my god!
Hold on.
I've got frosting everywhere. Okay, all right. Hold on. This is truly terrifying. I'm gonna set my desk on fire. Hi.
Holy crap!
45.
Yeah, I'm old as shit.
You are not that old.
No wonder she had to bring out so many cakes.
I'm quite sure I'm still the oldest on this crew.
Not by much. I'm catching up to you.
Not by.
I don't know if you're ever gonna catch up to him. I don't know if that's how time works.
Well, it does if I die.
See, there you go. I'm working on killing him right now.
Rab said he just threw his back out.
Yes, sir. I am 45.
I will argue that there are a couple of bad games, but stop it. See, John,
I didn't even go after Sonic CD, but the thing is Sonic will have like a couple okay games. It'll have some really good games. Like, I think Generations is a great game. I think Mania I need to start. I've heard really good things about Mania. Been a
love letter. Mania is a love letter to Sonic.
Yeah,
I've heard good things about Colors, and I really want to see Frontier do exceptionally well.
Colors, I heard Colors was really great. Sonic Generation, or Unleashed rather, got an FPS boost on the Series X. And now they say that game is what it should have been from the.
God, I am older than like half my chat. This is truly terrifying.
Which is funny because the chat is all retro gamers.
Yeah, we're all pretty old anyway.
So I'm still the old man of this chat. So
well, we are at an hour and 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll.
Okay.
No!
Are you guys okay?
No! Whoa! You only ended it because the Super Nintendo.
I haven't ended it yet, dude. We have 53 votes with like 26 people in chat.
Pretty darn close to 50.
My Genesis folks, vote twice, please.
We are done.
No, damn.
We are done. It was an hour and 10 minutes of what is usually an hour and a half stream.
Wow.
People have spoken.
I don't know that all the people have spoken. Now they have. That's total. Exactly. That's total sus. Ending it as the SNES pulled ahead. This reminds me of.
I watched it for 15 minutes with the Super Nintendo being ahead before I ended that. By the way,
there were some late.
It was close.
Late
and
night.
Genesis was ahead several times.
Late night mail-in votes that came in at the last minute.
You get no recounts. This is not a democracy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. We all know. Ballot harvest. That's right, Quan. There's a ballot harvesting going on.
I can sleep well tonight.
That's right. DJC and I refuse to acknowledge this did not happen.
It was very, very close to 50-50. It ended.
DJC. Over 50% of us here on the panel
versus
did vote for
49%,
so.
Which is kind of what I expected. I actually expected a dead heat. I completely expected, and honestly, with a 1% difference, I'm going to call it a dead heat.
It's within the margin of error.
Because if it'd been like Storm Nick's house, I got cake.
That might be a good enough reason. Oh, see, Big Block said, "Glad I showed up in time to vote." You disenfranchised my friend Big Block, who could have been. He could have been the deciding
Actually, I
vote.
think he voted Genesis because it was like 53-47. Right before I closed it, and then it was 50-49.
Alpha Nerd didn't even leave. He's so distraught. And there's my brother Sean Dell. There's my brother Sean Dell.
He voted for Sega earlier. He already voted, so his vote was counted.
Oh, Big Block! No. No, Big Block. No.
Oh, my man.
I'd have been okay with you disenfranchising his vote.
Oh, no.
Oh.
We all know SNES would have been further in the lead. Some accounts to get
at two.
So
wow.
There's one thing we haven't talked about that we should.
Let's do it. What we got?
What console had better music?
Ooh.
I would say neither. I hate the way both consoles sound, but people argue for either one.
I have more memorable, and this is. Go ahead.
No. You started talking, Nick.
And I think it's because I've played through them more recently, but the Mega Man X music comes to mind. And there's a lot of amazing music in that series. As much as some of those games frustrate me, some of those tunes are outstanding, and they stand out a bit more than like a lot of stuff from like say Earthworm Jim or Revenge of Shinobi stands out too. It's got some amazing music throughout, and I love how the stage is built in that in setting. So I'll give them that. But I think in my mind, at least right now, from what I've recently played, now I haven't gone back there and listened to a ton of the music, the SNES stands out a little bit more, but there's some outstanding music on both.
See, I can't stand the Mega Man X. That's an amazing soundtrack, but I really dislike how sampled. I mean, that was obviously they're very proud of the fact that the SNES was playing samples and not whatever the alternative is. I thought it sounded like crap. Even then, I did rent eventually Star Wars, and while it was cool that they were actually playing the Star Wars soundtrack, I didn't think it sounded that great. However, it's also easy for the Genesis. Unfortunately, it's easy to make that music sound bad if
you put
Sonic
work
2
into
sounds
it.
amazing. That's
if
a
you put work
fantastic
into it,
soundtrack.
it sounds great. They've got some games that sound amazing in there.
They do.
And Panda's right.
But they have a
Comic Zone
lot of
has
games
some
that sound like
amazing
crap.
sound.
I'm gonna give you a man that made that console
Yeah, you
freaking sing. Yuzo Koshiro.
Yuzo.
He, I, with all due respect to the sound chip that was in the SNES, and I understand the whole point of the sound chip that was in the Super Nintendo, but I have not found too many soundtracks on the Super Nintendo, and I'll put the Star Wars soundtrack in or stuff like that sound like Streets of Rage 2.
I would like to on that note, I'd like to hear what David Wise would have done on the Genesis. Because I mean, Rare is a European. I'm kind of surprised they didn't lean more.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country is a series that we haven't even brought up in this discussion yet, which has not only some of the most standout graphics, I think, of that era of gaming, just because of how unique it is. Now, it's not aged as well. It's aged a little rough, but at the time it was like stellar looking. And the music is insane. Like there are tracks on there that I listen to and I go, holy crap, that's 16-bit? My God. Now, mind you, there's tracks on the Genesis, I think, that way too. But there's, I don't know, there's more I kind of listen to on the Super Nintendo, and I think it's just the way that the tempo of some of it. It's less atmospheric, more driving, more zoning you into the game than it is just like trying to like
but then again
being atmospheric, right?
So I'll go back to Sword of Rebellion, and I'll go back to the title music alone on that game. When it started up, and I mean that was an incredible, just an opening soundtrack. It came on, it was like da 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 dum da 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 dum dum. And then you heard this crack of thunder. And then it went into its, rolling on soundtrack. The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which
that is an amazing soundtrack on the Genesis. I listened to that on my iPod.
I haven't played a lot of those on there. To me, honestly, like when I look at the 16-bit era and I look at the 8-bit era, I would honestly, from what little I played of them, I would take NES Batman over any other Batman from the 16-bit era.
Genesis
I'd rather
Batman's
play
pretty
that.
good too.
And Genesis, the original Batman was really good.
The original Genesis Batman is a lot of fun. I just think the NES one's better.
But I will tell you that Adventures of Batman and Robin was not only a crazy sounding game, it was a crazy playing game too. And it was two-player.
That game's frustrating to play, in my opinion, because there's too much stuff going on.
Oh, it was hard as shit, but it was also two-player, which was great.
Yeah, you needed a second player to make that game more playable. It was designed for two people to play it at the same time. If you try to do it single player and keep up with the amount of crap that's coming at you on screen, that game gets kind of ridiculous in a hurry and requires you to beat up like 89 guys or something like that to go to the next screen. It gets kind of stupid kind of fast. I love the art style of it and I love the music. It's just a little rough around the edges as far as gameplay goes, I feel like.
I would put some of Castlevania Bloodlines in there too. I mean, that's second.
Yeah, Bloodlines has really good music. Hardcore has some good music too.
Hardcore does, but that second stage in Bloodlines is freaking haunting.
Dude, the SNES Killer Instinct wins all, in my opinion, because it's the only one I have the soundtrack to, and that soundtrack, until I lost it recently, was on my iPhone permanently. I had it, yeah.
I mean, that was the arcade sound, the Killer Cuts. That wasn't like
but even the music on the Super Nintendo one was really good.
Yeah, I think I still have that Killer Cut CD because I worked at Blockbuster when that game came out, and so
Lords of Thunder was CD, was the TurboGrafx CD. I'm not comparing that and Airzonk's CD music to 16-bit era games, dude.
Yeah,
That's
because
not.
Lords of Thunder's. I mean, now I grant you that Lords of Thunder was better on the TurboGrafx CD than the Sega CD in many cases, but the soundtrack was the same.
Yeah.
I'll give you another.
I'm trying to compare like base Genesis to base Super Nintendo here without bringing in add-ons, and that's not. And if we want to bring Sega CD in as far as like game quality in, as far as this discussion, that's fine. As far as like audio sound, I don't want to compare those two because CD audio is radically different than what you could do on the MIDI chips that they had on the base systems. As far as games, fine. Bring in the Sega CD because the Super Nintendo never came out with the CD attachment. Now, I won't even draw the line at 32X. You can bring the 32X in there because I don't think it competes well.
Well,
overall.
I would put the Sega CD in there only because while yes, they added sprite scaling and rotation, they did not increase the color palette. It wasn't until the 32X that they actually increased the color palette. However, I would leave both of those off because they are accessories. I don't think it's fair to bring accessories in to try to, because that's not. Then you open up all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't do that. You keep it base console.
Well, and that was the one advantage I felt the Super Nintendo kind of had is it didn't do as many attachments during its lifespan.
You know,
about the console, and the only other accessory you really had was the scope, right? Which was lackluster. I'll admit that. I had fun with it, but it was lackluster. Let's be honest. And then you got the Sega CD, which they were trying to compete with the Turbo Duo at the time that was coming out. And then you got the 32X, which was supposed to be their short stopgap before the Saturn that was kind of meant to sort of complete with PlayStation and Jaguar before the Saturn actually dropped, but was handled so badly that it just never quite did what it was supposed to do.
Wait, hold on. If Jim's bring that up, I just literally just put this away because I was going to bring it up. Well, if this is
the power-based converter,
this is a comparable counterpoint to the Super Game Boy, kind of.
Yeah.
See, and that add-on makes me angry because the moment I bought that, I could never find Master System games again. I bought it specifically because I never had the Master System, and I thought, this is great. It's $100. I can start to get some Master System games cheap, and I can play those on my Genesis, and I could never find them.
You know where the best place to get those are, honestly, and I've seen a few people get them, get a lot of them. Get one of the subscriptions to like Video Games Monthly or Retro Game Treasure. You will get plenty of Master System games.
I thought there was an Arizona CD version as well, Chuck.
And
I haven't gone retro game hunting for that at all. I don't even have my Genesis with that attachment, and that's what soured me a little bit on Sega from the very get-go because I got that almost at the same time I got my Genesis, and then I could never find any games for it. So it was $100 investment that never got any use.
I think the Game Boy had a better library than the Master System did, though. So I think
absolutely,
the Super Game Boy was better.
the Game Boy and the Super Game Boy
did.
Yeah, the Game Boy library actually still stands out today.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you go back and you look at those games are still like crazy amazing. A lot of them. There's some shovelware too, no lie, but there's a lot of great stuff.
So the other, I mean, I have to go back to games like you kind of bagged on Sonic 3D Blast, but the Genesis version of that game, now the Saturn version of that game had of course an amazing CD soundtrack, but the Genesis version of that game had an amazing soundtrack. That was very Sonic-like.
I'm not talking about soundtrack. I'm just talking about like Sonic has been more inconsistent with games like Mario.
No. But we were talking about music. We were still talking about who had the better music.
Yeah, if you go to music, that's fine. I'm not bagging on the music in the game. I'm talking about inconsistent. When I was talking about that, I was talking about just inconsistent games in general. Right?
Well, I think
Sonic has been more inconsistent with quality games than Mario has. Overall,
I could agree with that. I definitely could agree with that. But a lot of that too is because
and I just lost the sub.
That was me.
I mean, that's one place where Nintendo never strayed from their formula. I mean, they didn't try to do a lot different with Mario. Whereas Sonic, they took a lot of chances with it. Don't forget, it wasn't just 3D Blast. Sonic Spinball was a whole different game than,
I had a
the
hard
Sonic
time
game.
getting into Spinball. I wanted to like Spinball, and it seemed like a really, really good
Yeah,
idea. But I had trouble loving that one.
It's because it was totally a departure from what they were doing. So I mean, that's part of where the issue with Sonic games are. Is they
Hey,
try
Moses, good to see you, man.
Hello, Moses. They tried to do different things with the franchise, and people didn't want that. People wanted more. That's what, as much as I like the game on the 32X, Knuckles Chaotix was never a high-selling game. But because it wasn't a mainline
Knuckles
Sonic.
looks weird to me. Like, every time I look at that game and I try to follow what's going on, it just... I'll give it props for uniqueness, but my God, that game's a struggle to even love just watching it graphically. And I've seen it played multiple times. I'm like, I'm not getting it. Like, I'm struggling here.
Because a lot of the games, honestly, it was one of the few games that actually used the 32X to its full potential. Most games use the 32X for front characters, for foreground characters, and use the Genesis for the backgrounds, or vice versa. So like they touted having Primal Instinct, Primal Rage rather, on that. The backgrounds on Primal Rage were done by the Genesis, the Genesis hardware. There were things that when that was what frustrated me about the 32X. I love my 32X. There are some fantastic 32X games. Zaxxon Mother Base 2000, Star Wars Arcade, Knuckles Chaotix, believe it or not, Colibri. I could go through a list of excellent 32X games, but there were a ton of games that they never got, that they should have gotten down, that just never took advantage of the hardware. And that killed it.
Well, and I think that had to do with Sega trying to figure out how to incorporate so many disparate pieces of technology and flex them.
Yep.
And it made development complicated because you had to figure out how to address everything independently, right? And figure out how to use it. So it just kind of became this kludgy web of like spaghettiness that you were trying to figure out how to do and work with to make the best out of it. And when you could do it, it's great. But the problem is figuring out how to do it, right? I don't know.
Thumb Brothers.
Yeah, Sega marketing was always awful in Japan.
Yep.
America is where Sega actually succeeded, and they spent into their disservice. And what has hurt them the most, and has hurt a lot of Japanese companies, even to this day, is the fact that they push. And they push for the Japan market above everything else. Rather than looking at it as a global market, they will look at Japan first.
And that's,
And that's to the detriment of them as a whole. Now, they've gotten slightly better about it over the years, but Other M is a more recent example of when we've talked last, of a game that was focused on trying to get Japan on board with the series rather than just trying to make a good game in the series.
And that's, and I'm still liking Other M, but I mean,
Other M is a good game, but it's so different from the other ones, and that it didn't cater to its audience, and it didn't do as well as a result.
And remember, me not playing the original was part of that. So the craziest thing about Sega was that
Jim, it was a stopgap. It came out. It was out in the United States longer before the Saturn than it was in Japan, and they wanted to bring it out to ease people into the 32-bit era, or to give people access to something that could do 32-bit without having to do the expense of a Saturn, because it was like $100. I want to say $100 to $130 versus $400.
Right.
And then within a week, they launched the Saturn in Japan, and then immediately almost dropped all support for the 32X, which means everybody in the United States barely got any titles for it ever, because nobody in Japan and none of the developers were focused on the 32X, and Sega didn't want them to because they already had the Saturn out.
Yep.
And so they shot that accessory in the foot immediately on their own from the very beginning.
Yeah, so many mistakes that they made, and that's what drove Tom Kalinske out of Sega. That's what.
Sega was their worst enemy, dude.
Yep,
absolutely the worst enemy. Nintendo was bad. Nintendo was bad for them and everybody during that era, quite frankly. But Sega did not make it easier on themselves.
And what's really sad is that at the very beginning, I mean, and you've covered this, the 32X.
How you doing, man?
How you doing, Aiden? The 32X sold well at the beginning, but when you had no ability to keep your audience, because you're right, those bigger developers, whether it was Capcom, Konami, all those guys, they decided to drop all their 32X projects so they could make games for the Saturn and the PlayStation. So it was, and if they had just held off a little bit. Because here in America, I got the reason that the 32X should have been more popular here. There were more Genesis machines. And what better way to take advantage of an already established base than to do that? Sega Japan just did not. They just miscalculated everything.
Sega Japan did not listen enough to Sega of America that actually knew how to sell their console. That was the problem.
Yep.
All along. And then they did the same thing with the Saturn, and then they did it again with the Dreamcast. Because they took away the aggressive marketing that they did with the Genesis and went a more Japanese kind of passive route with marketing on the Saturn, on top of misstepping with the launch.
Yeah.
Massively. And that's what killed the Saturn. And then the Dreamcast, they tried to revive that whole like Sega kind of vibe that they had going, and it worked, but it was too little too late. They had too many products, they had too much stuff going on.
They were hemorrhaging money.
And it was their last ditch effort. Their arcade wasn't doing well. Nothing was going well for them. They were not making enough money. And the Dreamcast was there. We need money now. Get it out now. Console. And for what they did with it, it was outstanding.
Still my goat.
Yeah, it's an amazing console. But
that
the reason it was so short-lived is because they didn't have any money to put into it in the first place. They barely had enough to make the thing.
Yeah, they really... And that led to, I mean, it's a good thing Sammy Holdings bought them, because if they were still their own entity, I don't know how long they would have lasted.
And Taters, there was a good reason for that, because they launched it earlier than they were supposed to and broke their contract with a lot of large retailers, that the retailers pulled everything Sega out of their stores.
KB Toy and Hobby.
And said, screw you. And so it never showed up on stores like it was supposed to, for that very reason, because they broke their street date and they lost a ton of goodwill.
They
the retailers permanently that way.
They thought that they could sell this basically through Walmart and EB, and that would be enough for them. And
Sega prioritized being first to market rather than having a quality product, or adhering to their launch schedule. Because because they launched early with the Saturn, they had problems. They had problems because they didn't have the titles ready. For it. They needed more time, and they didn't have it.
And it's crazy because the Saturn did so well in Japan for so much longer, even after it died out. It was just crazy.
I have no devil's advocate for Sega Japan. They destroyed that company, in my opinion. If they had listened more to Nintendo, to Sega of America, they would have done significantly better.
Mm-hmm. And when Bernie Stolar came in, he destroyed relationships with, with working designs. Like I remember I used to be on IRC chats and stuff, and Victor Ireland, who was the president of Working Designs, he would be in these chats and in these message areas and would just blast Bernie Stolar. And as soon as he could jump ship after the Saturn, he went right to the PlayStation, which is why you never saw Lunar come out for the Dreamcast. You did get some game art stuff, but it wasn't by Working Design. So Grandia and Grandia 2, that kind of thing. But man, Bernie Stolar was so bad, which was weird because he worked for Sony. I almost think the man was a plant.
So we should probably wrap this up pretty soon. I know Rob's crashing. I want to spend some time with my wife before I get to go into work tomorrow. In the end, I love both consoles. This was basically just for fun.
For people
I love both consoles in the end also.
Yeah. I've had both of them. I enjoy both of them. Like I said, as I've gotten older, I appreciate the SNES library. Which one did you vote? What now?
I did vote Sega Genesis.
Oh, see, you didn't even win, and he voted for you. So we had two in the panel that voted for you. You still lost.
That's because people. I think people were just being nice to you for your birthday. Yeah, people were being nice to you because it was your birthday.
It's my birthday.
I might have told people to vote SNES in private because
lies.
Because it was your birthday.
You did not lies.
Let him have this. You were
gonna give me that.
I'll give him this one. I'll let him have this one. So, I will always and forever be a Sega guy. Always and forever.
I love some Sega, but they are terrible to themselves.
Well, they were
every way.
But when it comes to the Genesis, Sega CD, Saturn, Dreamcast,
There's eating paste. How you doing, man?
I was staunchly Sega until the Nintendo 64. So.
And I find it funny that the Nintendo 64 is the one that pulled you over because most people moved to Sony around that time.
Yeah,
I know.
That's where Nintendo lost me. So.
Yeah, see, I got my. You had to remember, other than the scant little bit of NES I played at my girlfriend at the time's house, that I wasn't a big Mario guy. I was a Sonic guy. If my dad had brought home an NES, could be a whole different story. But he brought that Genesis home, and that was all she wrote. So
we would have had a 10-minute stream tonight and said, "Yep, Super Nintendo wins."
Yeah,
right.
So, but yeah, the 64.
And we totally could have done that. It could have gone. I'm calling a birthday mulligan. Super Nintendo. Bye.
The 60. It is funny. The 64 is what pushed me to. It's what broke me of my complete Sega fanboyism. I got 100 stars in Mario 64. I loved Wave Race.
I had like 112 in that one by the time I was done with that game. I never got 120.
I even got the one on the top of the damn castle. WCW versus NWO, the wrestling games were just sublime. The Nintendo 64 had just some unbelievable titles. And from there, we talked about the GameCube 1 week. I love the GameCube. I still have my GameCube.
The GameCube always felt like it should have done far better than it did.
Yep.
But it hit at a time where everybody had already moved away from Nintendo. They were burnt out by Nintendo. And you had too much competition between the PlayStation and Microsoft coming out on the market.
And that's when I started to move to the Xbox.
Yeah, I did OG Xbox first, and then I got a GameCube.
Yeah,
and I didn't have a PlayStation around that time. I didn't go with a PlayStation till PS3, because that D-pad is still bad to me. I've gotten better with it, still don't like it.
Chad has a good suggestion. We should save some of this stuff for the next podcast where we talk about the N64 versus PS1.
Yeah, that was less of a competition because I feel like, as much as I love the N64 and I feel like it's got a good solid library, it's got its fair share of crap. Don't get me wrong. the PlayStation just dominated that generation. There was no stopping it.
Yeah.
It had a 3-year head start, and it was just a juggernaut. And it had all the good third-party support. But yeah, we could definitely do this with more systems. If we do TurboGrafx, we definitely need to get DJC in here for sure. Absolutely. Him and Sire are my go-tos for TurboGrafx stuff, bar none. I know a little bit about it, but I have not dug too deep into it to really get a good feel for that library. But I think I'm going to call it here. With both systems are awesome. I love Sega. I love Nintendo. I wish Sega would get back into consoles, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
No.
They don't manage systems well at all. Their history has proven that time and time again, unfortunately.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to do that. Everybody wants a Dreamcast too, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, that thing was too short-lived.
Yeah. And it's okay, because I thoroughly love my Dreamcast. I will always love my Dreamcast. That to me is still to date the best launch lineup of any console.
Thank you,
ever.
Lindy. And absolutely, the Dreamcast had probably what's my favorite starting lineup of all time.
No one has yet.
Later, Jim.
No one has yet to match that lineup.
Later, Jim.
Good day, Jim. So, don't you laugh at Sonic CD. Sonic CD.
I love Taters. Taters is awesome.
It is funny because that game is a love or hate. I have never seen a middle ground for Sonic CD. I love it. John hates it. I've never seen a middle ground.
I don't have a strong opinion on it. I've not dug into it enough. It looks interesting, is all I can say.
No. I think people don't like the time travel aspect of it.
It is a little confusing. So, because we're all kind of falling asleep here, last thoughts. Rob, go.
I already said my last thoughts. I like them both.
Okay. Mike, go.
Genesis. Always. Always and forever.
I guess Genesis might have a slight edge. That
last thoughts. Mike is wrong. Mike is always wrong.
There you go.
Why am I? This is why I'm here, for your
James, if you want to jump on here one night, man, we're more than happy to have you on. We just got to find a topic you want to talk on, man.
Video games, clearly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do we talk
video games?
Yeah, it's a pretty. Yeah.
All right, well, we're getting sidetracked again.
I think we're going to call it here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for popping in. This was an awesome chat. We had an awesome crowd tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for popping in with us. We do this every other week if some of you guys are new. So come back next time, and we will see you then. Happy gaming.
Play on, gamers.